Welcome into the Hoist the Kellers podcast. It is Monday night. It is May 19th. I'm laughing because literally we started the show with a frozen Scott Lorbatcher. He is on bottom if you're watching our stream. We have Jonathan Wagner, who's usually frozen. He's been better this year. I just watched the movie Frozen with my children before putting them to bed. So maybe that is part of the problem. I'm Stephen Igo. And guys, it is now or never for the ECU baseball team. They will start conference tournament play Tuesday night, and they have to win to extend their season. They've got to win this conference tournament to get the automatic bid. This is a place we have not been since we started this podcast. So that is unfamiliar territory for us as a group. It's kind of unfamiliar territory for ECU baseball fans. So we'll get into all that, break down the conference tournament action, the setup, all that. But first, we always start our general thoughts on the week that was. By the way, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Drop a question, comment, concern. We'll get to it throughout the next hour. But, yeah, I mean, just overall thoughts on the week. We'll start with Mr. Frozen himself, Scott Lorbatcher.
Yeah, you started off Thursday and kind of felt good about the rest of the weekend, especially, kind of seeing that, USF wasn't going to – it didn't seem like they were going to put everything out there for the weekend. They were going to hold some back too. And it's like, okay, well, we're on the same page, right? Like, we're not putting our best guys out there for as much as we maybe could for the whole weekend, and neither are they. And then the Friday game, I mean, to get smoked like that when you have a dust up at first base, you kind of get some jawing back and forth, and then it kind of felt just like we laid down until the end of the Saturday game. And it was cool to see Irby hit that home run. I know that he probably felt pretty good about that after everything that had happened. And we fought back some on Saturday, but it's still just not enough. And it's kind of been that way. It felt like this weekend series felt like the entire year's worth of weekend series, where we'd play well one game, we'd play awful one game, and then we'd have a 50-50 game that we'd lose. And it's really felt like that all year. And so it was just more of the same. Granted, no Norby this weekend, held him for Tuesday. So we'll see if that helped. But it's just more of the same.
Wags.
Yeah, I think I was a little surprised this weekend by how much kind of my mood watching it swung. Because I think you start off on Thursday, and I think Thursday was probably arguably your second most complete game of the year, probably behind the Virginia Tech win. And at the very least, it's up there in that discussion. And you looked really good without, like Scott said, Ethan Norby. Lance Williams came in and pitched very well. And I'm not going to lie, after that game, I kind of thought, like, my mind started to creep to, a new season starts on Tuesday. And you never know. And I had a little hope. And Scott's frozen, just staring into my soul. But
so good.
But yeah, so after Thursday, I was kind of I let hope creep back into my mind a little bit, and I'm like, man, who knows if this team gets hot and it starts this weekend? They carried it over into Clearwater, and then who knows what can happen? But then afterwards, by the end of the weekend, it was, man, let's just go 0-2. Let's get this over with. Put me out of my misery. I'm tired of this. And I mean, that's just. I think that perfectly kind of describes how this season has gone. It's like Scott said, you have one good game, you have one really bad game, and you have one 50-50 that you never get on the right side of pretty much all year. But there were some positives. I think this weekend you did need some pitchers to step up, and I think Bradley Zayak, Sean Jenkins, Nick Moran, Lance Williams all, I think, stepped up and pitched well, some of them better than the box score would indicate. So there was some good, but in the end, it's just a fitting end to a fitting season that's full of frustration and felt like you should have had a different result.
Yeah, I mean, more of the same. My thoughts on the series, you thought Thursday was going to be a potential turning point. We've heard you need to play your best ball going into the tournament, and definitely seemed like they might trend that direction. And, maybe if they throw Norby, you win 2 games, but also you can make the argument if they throw Braun, do they beat you the first game anyway. So, like, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of diving too down. I guess we'll find out Tuesday, who kind of comes out the better of that. But look, it's just, I don't know, man. The inconsistency with just every aspect of the game right now, pitching, defense, hitting. It's like one game they look incredible, the next they just don't like execute anything. It's like, to a degree, that is baseball. That's what makes the game beautiful. But we now have a full season sample size, and that's part of the reason why I'm not going to pick them to do too well in the conference tournament. I hope I'm wrong, but like, they just have not proven all year they can string good games together. So I don't know. It's just more of the same, as you guys said. There's really not a whole lot to really break down. I mean, I guess the biggest thing, and this will kind of lead into what I learned as we're starting to get some more comments, is like, I do think this team has the pieces required to make a run from a pitching standpoint in the conference tournament, but it has to go perfect. Like you saw on Thursday in the series opener, when Ethan Young and Brad Pruitt are on, and let's say you get those two things on and you get a good Ethan Norby performance, those are three of the best pitchers in the conference. And so, like, to get to the Saturday semifinals game, you just have to win the first two games. So 3 pitchers, if they're on, can lead you to some success in those first 2 games. So a lot has to go right. Is it possible? Yes. But that's kind of my biggest takeaway is if you get that Ethan Young and that Brad Pruitt, this team can make a run. Something I learned over the weekend. Anything you learned, Scott?
Yeah, I learned that. I'm excited to see how Bradley Zayak grows from this season to next, because I thought he pitched really well in that last game. And, he's had an up and down year. Early in the year, we thought he was maybe a guy that was going to contribute a lot more this season than what he was able to. Kind of fought through some adversity, but then came back. And I think he's really hitting his stride now. And I'm excited to see what he can do in the conference tournament. We talked about you got to find an extra guy in the conference tournament if you're going to go all the way. So maybe he's that guy. And then going into next year, does he develop enough to become a weekend starter, or, through guys coming back from injury and the transfer portal, is he a guy that could potentially be that Tuesday guy that we have begged for 5 or 6 years now?
Wags, did you learn anything?
Yeah, I'm going to save my rant for later because I'm sure we're going to get into the infield discussion as a whole. But I learned that Sean Jenkins this year was not what he expected or what we expected of him. But that dude, I think, has come on strong at the end of the season, which is exactly what you want for a kid in that situation. And obviously, a lot of expectations came on him. I listened to our preseason pod earlier this morning just to go through all our picks. And one thing I said when talking about it, and we did terribly, by the way, but we all picked him to lead the team in ERA. I said he was going to be a top 10 pick before when he leaves ECU. And I think that it was just a lot to put on a 17-year-old. But I do think he's gotten better. I think he kind of settled into that role where you have an opener kind of start the game, and then he comes in out of the bullpen and gives you length. And I think that's extremely important considering the state of the pitching staff right now and how shallow it is due to injury. So Sean Jenkins has stepped up. And if you only look at the box score, and Cliff Godwin said this morning in your interview with him, but if you just look at the box score, you probably think, man, this guy's not very good. But if you watch the starts, then I do think he has shown a lot of signs of improvement and given me reason to believe that he still can be like a piece of the puzzle next year, whether it's a weekend rotation or whether it's his role that he's in now. And he kind of comes out of the bullpen and he gives you length and kind of cleans up a whole game for you. So he did well. Lance Williams did well again. So I'm a lot more encouraged for sure on the pitching side, both for this week and for the future.
Good thoughts there for sure. As I thought, yeah, I mean, look, the defense on Saturday and Friday, Saturday, I always get my days mixed up, was just it was just atrocious. I don't know what the final the error mark was. Like, they gave the hit quotation marks, the one that Colby Wallace misplayed, which was easily an error. And look, Colby Wallace, I'll be the first to say, has been phenomenal at third base. Like, he's the least of ECU's concerns defensively, but like, that should have been an error.
It
was
did
Roy.
get switched to an error.
Okay.
Eventually. Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah. About dropped.
I remember I complained about that in the group chat, and then I was so checked out by that point. By the time I did switch it, I didn't even say anything after. So, but yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that they made the right call there because that was the obvious call. So good for them. All right. Let's get into some of these comments, and that will take us into the infield decision, which we'll reference here. All right. Cameron says not having a series win over a team better than 100 in the RPI is an embarrassment. So that is a fact, gentlemen. What is the best series win this year?
George Mason.
Let me pull it up as well.
So does UNCW count since it's a midweek?
No.
Series win?
No, but we can mention it, but it doesn't count for a series, I don't think.
It doesn't count because I drove all the way to Fayetteville for the only game they lost.
Do I need to stand on this table and say the UNCW series counts as a top 100 series win?
Is that?
Even
I
still,
mean, I don't
they're
remember,
81.
I don't know what they've done the rest of the season, but I feel like at one point UNCW was kind of like fading pretty fast.
I think they've picked it up. So
they were like
81.
500.
Yeah, they're 81 in the RPI. They're now 32 and 22. They won their last 6, so that helped.
But yeah, series wins this year. I've got it pulled up now, and we talked about this earlier this week. George Mason, who at the time of this tweet, which was 2 days ago, so on Saturday, RPI 121. You won the LeClaire Classic, and you picked up wins against Indiana State, RPI 160, Virginia Tech 50.
Yo, shout out Kent State, 99 the RPI, much better than I expected.
The
William
best team in the LeClaire Classic, some would say.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
God.
Might be true, legitimately.
But then you had 3 200 plus. It was William and Mary 214, Memphis 212, Rice 209, and UAB 163. That's the list. That's really bad, awful year. Just even if you throw UNCW into that, like whoop-de-doo, like congrats.
Whoop-de-doo. I'm gonna just cut that soundbite, just waxing it. Whoop-de-doo, congrats, and just play it. But look, new season, boys. Starts tomorrow. Speaking of seasons, Lane Smith says, "Is this the worst season in the past 2 decades?" To me, look, 2017, you still went 7-17 in the conference. I know the conference was better, but like that to me, and there were injuries. They're very comparable, but that's probably the worst season. Now, the past 2 decades, I would have to go back to. Billy Godwin has some pretty lean years there towards the end as well. So I don't know, Scott. What do you think about that statement?
Yeah, I would say the 17 team that I believe we went to Mercer the first week and got swept, and that was a team that was like a top 16 team coming into the season. I would say that was a more disappointing year, but that team also made a run to the conference championship game and almost made the tournament. So. Obviously the book is still being written on this team, but that team did at least have that. Like you said, the conference was way better at that point. Houston and UCF, I think, and what else was UConn was in the league at that time too, and they were all pretty good. The last 2 years of Billy Godwin, where we went back to back appearances without making a regional, those weren't great either. But the expectations were so much lower then that it's hard to compare those to this season. This has probably been the most like bad I've felt about a team throughout the whole year. Because the 17 team, it felt like they were just a play or two away from breaking out. Coming off of being 90 feet away from Omaha. Probably helped a little bit too because it felt like we had so much momentum. And obviously the way last season ended, rolling into this season, it's probably the worst I've retroactively looked at a season of my time as an ECU fan, which is close to 2 decades. So, I mean, I don't know if it's statistically the worst, but it's probably my least favorite season if I had to pick one at this point.
The 17 team started 0-10 in the American, which is like incredible. I don't know. And as you mentioned now, they played like those first 3 series were UConn, number 14 Houston, and UCF. So like it wasn't Rice and UTSA back then. I don't think it was any good, but you get my point. I don't know. I mean, you can make an argument both ways, as you mentioned. Like the expectations coming into that season were so high. Wags, I'll let you not lay in. You can lay in somebody later, but will you weigh in on this? As you are probably the youngest Pirate fan here, as far as diving into the program. So, kind of, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, my freshman year was the 18 baseball season, so the 17 to 18 school year, and the couple years before that was kind of my first glimpse into college baseball, let alone ECU. So, yeah, it definitely feels the most disappointing, but I do think it's the expectations, and we expect better than this. But at the same time, it's like we came into this year knowing pretty much the entire team was a question mark. So it doesn't make it any less frustrating because, I mean, God knows I've gone on however many rants this year, and I've gone on record here on the show saying that I do think that the coaching has been poor at times, and I do think this team didn't have to be as bad as it is. I think you make a couple changes, you do some things differently, I think you're looking at least a little bit better. So that's where the frustration is for me. But yeah, it's 17 was frustrating and 17 was bad. But again, like Scott said, you ended kind of, at least like you felt like you had a chance. And right now we're going into Clearwater saying, not to spoil our picks, not that we know what we're going to pick yet, but I'm not picking us to win the tournament. I don't think we have a chance. So it's just, to me, that's where the difference lies. And it sucks. I'm ready for it to be over. And that's how you know it's bad, because I love ECU baseball. Like, I go out of my way to watch every single game. I keep scorebook for every single game. And I cannot wait for the season to end.
All right. Lane also has a question. He says, who's the most to blame? I think we're all in agreement. We're going to do a show next Monday recapping like the whole season. Do we want to save that for? I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that question, so we'll save that for next week. Because otherwise, we'll go down a rabbit hole. But Lane, good question, and we'll get into that next week. Just kind of what happened the entire season.
Are we supposed to be previewing our regional next week?
Hey, man, if ECU is in a regional, we will be previewing the regional, and we'll wait till the following week to say who's the most to blame. How about that?
We'll be getting ready for a super at that point.
Yeah.
We got like a month left.
That would be the most ECU thing ever. The sky is falling. Nope, Pirates are just on their way to Omaha. They're just what's the phrase when you're just underachieving just to trick everybody?
Sandbagging.
Yep, sandbagging. There you go. They're the season of the sandbag. ECU baseball 2025. Here it comes. All right, Lane Smith also says, who's better, Ethan Norby or their guy? So their guy is Corey Braun, however you pronounce it. Both of them are really good. I don't know if you can really call either one better. For comparison's sake, Brown's numbers are a little better. He threw 89.2 innings, 8-2 record, 3.11 ERA, 90 strikeouts to 23 walks in 89.2 innings. And then Norby's ERA is a little higher. His record isn't quite as good, but I think Braun has been the most consistent over the course of the entire season. But I think when Ethan Norby is absolutely on, I think he might be the best pitcher in the league. Now, Gillespie from Charlotte has something to say about that, but any thoughts here? And is it an advantage, guys, and you both can weigh in on this question and more, that ECU held Norby, so USF hasn't seen him at all, whereas ECU at least saw Braun one time through the lineup. Scott, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an advantage. It's definitely, especially with a guy like Norby, who is not your prototypical ace, right? Like his methodology is to fool guys. It's not to overpower you. So when that's the case, the more you see a guy that's trying to fool you, the less likely you're going to be fooled. So I think it's definitely a benefit to us to have seen Braun, who's more of a stereotypical ace in the sense of stuff, than to have not seen him. But I do think that we are probably pitching wise at an advantage going into Tuesday.
Wags, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I think Braun, I would probably give a slight edge, but like you said, I think when Norby is on, he's probably the best pitcher in the league. And when Norby's really at his I'm talking like his elite best, like the absolute best Ethan Norby, which you can see a couple of times a year. Like you're flirting with no hitter type stuff, and you're flirting with history and that kind of stuff, and that's how good he is when he's on. So yeah, it is an advantage, and it's different facing him too because we saw it all year long. We first noticed it in the UNC series in the second week of the year with how quickly Norby works. Teams have to find a way to combat it, and every team. It wasn't just Carolina. Everyone else for the rest of the season I noticed is they're making it a known thing to look away from Ethan Norby so you don't engage with eye contact, so he can't work as quickly. So teams having to combat that, it's tough, and it throws off the hitter too. So Norby is great. So you need great Norby in Clearwater and tomorrow if you're going to go on the run. If you get bad Norby, it sets you up pretty poorly for the rest of the way. So it's a lot of pressure, but yeah, I really hope that the elite Norby that I was just talking about shows up, and I'm confident that he's going to because he's rested, and like we said, they haven't seen him before.
Need great Norby tomorrow. There's no doubt about it. It needs to be on this game. All right, Cameron says Alex Boucher, the biggest miss in the portal for Goblin era. I don't know if this is a question. Look, I'm going to push back on this. Look, Boucher has had his problems, but at least he's played and given his all to ECU. Like Chaz Myers, Cam Murphy, Jonathan Childress. Like there's half these guys barely ever played for ECU. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. And I think we all agree on this. And you guys I know have made this point. I think you both tweeted about it, and I know we texted about it, but like it's not Alex Boucher's fault that he is being put at shortstop every single game if that is not his natural position. And we could have a whole podcast about this as well, the lack of the ability to get a true shortstop. But he's made his errors. ECU has continued to run him out there the whole regular season until today, it seems. And so Cliff Goblin said earlier today on 94.3 The Game that they're going to make a change. Boucher may DH. He may play left field or play first base, but they're going to put Dixon at short, Burris at second, and obviously Colby at third and Irby at first. So we'll go around the horn again here. Thoughts on this, the Boucher situation? Scott, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's completely unfair to Alex Boucher for what we've asked him to do this year. We've asked him to play a position that, one, he didn't even play that much of last year, right? Like he played mostly first base at Old Dominion. Then we bring him here and play him at shortstop. Well, he's a first baseman. He can maybe play third base. He can probably play outfield. And I think if you put a player that doesn't have the tools in the most visible spot in the infield, which is shortstop, there's a reason that when you start in T-ball and go all the way through high school, the best kid on your team always plays shortstop. This is the most visible, valuable spot on the field. You got to have a strong arm. You got to have a good glove. You got to be rangy. And Alex Boucher doesn't really have all of those tools, at least at the Division I level. And it's unfair to ask him to go out there and do that every day and expect him to succeed when he doesn't have the tools to do so. If you put him at first base or DH, and yes, he struck out a lot too. I get it. But if he's your DH that's hitting like 230 but has some pop and does strike out some, I think it's the way that we look at his season is completely different than if he's your starting shortstop that's having trouble in the field. And that trouble carries over to the plate, it seems like a lot of the times. Honestly, I think if you didn't have him playing shortstop, he probably is hitting 275 and he probably hits 3 or 4 more home runs. Because I do think the situation in the field has carried over into his plate appearances. I think it's on this coaching staff to, one, not recruit a true shortstop. And I know this should have been Parker Bird's junior year, and if he's healthy, he's your everyday shortstop. And this isn't even a conversation because he would have probably been a guy that we're talking about. How high is he going to go in the draft? But it's been 3 years. You got to get a guy in there that can be rangy and play. We had this conversation on the board today about outside of Agnos, in my opinion, we have not had a guy who is either great at the plate or great in the field at shortstop in Cliff Godwin's tenure. And I know somebody mentioned Turner Brown. I would put Turner Brown as the floor of what I expect our shortstop position to be at East Carolina. You're in a high-profile job and program that, look, the NIL thing, we have money to spend. We may not have as much money as the SEC or the ACC, but there's not a lot of money going around elsewhere. And we were never really recruiting against those conferences anyway. So that's beyond the point. And then you're the shortstop in a place that cares so much about baseball. Like, guys want to do that. So we got to recruit guys that can hit and field at shortstop. I mean, it's crazy that we're talking about this in year 11, but like it's beyond that point. But I do want to say Boucher is a local kid. He gave us all for the games he was out there. I think it's been past time to make a change, but it's not fair to run a guy who gives everything every day down because he's not playing in a position that he should be in anyway.
And I'll add too, like I agree with you, and I'll let Wags weigh on this too. I do think, as Scott said, like you could tell it was starting to take a mental toll on him once he. I don't want to say he got the yips, but like once he made, an error early in the series or early on Friday, and that kind of lingered, and he obviously started Saturday's game bad, and it just lingered. You could tell mentally it affected him. Watching the team close up, like he was definitely pressing at the plate. I mean, there's always swing and miss there, but he was like trying to do too much at times, which it just exacerbated itself. And look, I think with Braun starting on Tuesday as a lefty, I wouldn't be shocked to see him DH. I mean, that'll probably be John Collins, but like, who would you rather have in the lineup against a lefty, Drew Downs or Boucher? I wouldn't mind seeing Boucher get a couple ABs because if he runs into one, he could do some damage. Wags, your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, the situation sucks, and it's a complete and utter failure by the coaching staff. And, when I've alluded to all year long that I think the coaching has been piss poor, this is it. And look, Boucher's been bad, and his glove has been bad. His arm, he has an arm, but he kind of overcompensates sometimes because he bobbles the ball, and his bat has been good enough. But for all the reasons that Scott said, it's not fair to put all the blame on him. Does he deserve some blame? Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I agree. He's not a shortstop. And look, I know that you recruited him and the plan was for him to be your shortstop. But to me, the failure comes from a lack of a backup option. And you literally have no other option on the roster. Dixon Williams does not have an arm that's even remotely close to being able to play shortstop. And now he's going to get his first shot at, being like a full-time starting shortstop when your season's on the line. So it sucks, and it's the coaching staff's fault to not have another your only option at shortstop is the guy who's not a shortstop. Whose fault is that? It's yours. So to not only have – there's nobody else on the roster. I mean, Braden Burris maybe. He's been playing outfield, and I understand that the Riley Johnson injury kind of impacted plans. But at some point, I think you've got to just try something else. And now you're in a position – to where you're going into Clearwater and you have, potentially 2 games left in your season to test out what you have next year. And you're not even going to test out what you have next year. But when you have a guy that's struggling that much, that's where you have to just kind of throw stuff at the fan and see what sticks, Put Braden Burris at shortstop. Colby Wallace, I'm not convinced he could play shortstop because I think he's a little too long, not twitchy enough. But why not try it for a game? And put him out there. You never know. And because now you're in a situation to where Alex Boucher is not your shortstop of the future. You don't have a shortstop for the future. And now you're at the point to where you're in the same exact position going into next year to where you're hoping whoever you take a shot on the portal that's probably not proven is going to fare any better. And it's ridiculous, and it's their own fault. And when it doesn't work out next year, I'm going to say the same thing because they put themselves in that position.
Fair thoughts for sure. And look, I mean, they've got to find an answer in the shortstop department this offseason. I mean, it's just we talked about it a lot. The inability to get like either a guy who has an elite glove or is a good hitting shortstop. Like you just think about it. Like Joey Barini. No disrespect to Joey Barini, who we all like. He was a guy who had a below average bat and a below average glove, and he was your starting shortstop for a team that hosted a regional. So it's just like,
and I miss him right now.
Yeah, I mean that just shows, it's good to have an overachiever at shortstop like Brainy, but like there's got to be a dude that wants to be the shortstop for East Carolina University, and the ECU's got to find that guy. All right, Jack Dover says, I hope this team finally understands who they are and what they are good at currently. We are a team that has a couple of great pitchers and can't hit the ball well. I definitely think now, guys, like there's a clear – we can kind of get in this conversation now. Like the clear path to winning a conference championship tournament for me is your pitching's got to be on and your top and middle of the order have to hit, because I just don't see the bottom of this order right now being able to do a whole lot of damage the way it's constructed. There's a lot of holes in the bottom of the lineup. Maybe one of those guys can get hot, but I think more than anything, those guys are going to have to execute the small ball if asked. And then you're going to have to play good defense, and you're going to have to rely on your top-end pitchers, and you're going to have to stay in the winner's bracket. It's possible, but I just think those things all have to play out, because I just don't see enough depth and consistency elsewhere right now. Scott, your take on what's the path to the conference championship for ECU?
Yeah, I think you have to sweep the first half of it to get to the championship game without having played an extra game or two games, like we've had to do in the past. And then I think on the other side of that, you probably need whoever you're playing to have played an extra game or two. But yeah, I think it's been early in offense late. If your pitching can be on Tuesday, and if you win Thursday, then you can ride a hot arm those two games. But by the time you get to that third game, you got to have bats, because you're going to be out of pitching no matter what. I mean, that's just the way it kind of works, the same way as in a regional, right? I mean, Friday and Saturday are typically games that are low scoring, and then by the time you get to the regional championship game, it's some offense. So I think we're going to need length. I think Norby needs to go out there and give us 7 innings. I think whoever goes on Thursday needs to go give us 5 or 6. And then if we get to the third game, that guy's got to give us 5 or 6. Because if not, then we just don't have enough back-end bullpen arms that are going to be able to carry us to a championship.
And I think that we're all in agreement that if ECU falls into the loser's bracket, much like any team, I mean, I just don't think any team in this tournament, outside of maybe UTSA, can just hit its way out of the loser's bracket. I don't see any team that's able to survive not winning the first 2 games to win it all. I mean, it's never happened in the history of the league. ECU is the only team to make it to the championship game without winning those first 2 games or coming out of the loser's bracket. So, Wags, what is your ideal path to a title?
Yeah, like Scott said, it's first of all getting length tomorrow night from Ethan Norby. But, obviously you have to win that game. And also I think you have to win that game because if you do go on a run, you're going to want Walker Barron to be able to get off his legs as often as possible. And I think we saw this past weekend why Walker Barron has started every game, which is unfortunate. But you need him to be sharp defensively and mostly defensively. At the plate, ideally you have him going, but, it kind of is what it is. But you need him sharp defensively. So winning that first game, giving him Wednesday off, and then, you talk about the semifinals potentially having to play 2 games in a day and then come back the next day for the championship. If you go on a run, you need him fresh. And yeah, it's just your bats have to come up. Your bats, and last week I talked about how the wind is in Florida, but that ballpark, Baycare Ballpark, whatever it's called, the wind can howl there, and we've seen some monster homers. So it's just a matter of you've got to go on. You got to put a bat on the ball. You can't have one of those games where you just go strike out and you roll over, hit weak grounders. But if you're going to hit the ball, try to hit the crap out of it. Pull a John Collins and just go swing as hard as you possibly can. And who knows what happens, because you never know what could happen when you put a ball in play in that ballpark. So get out there, swing it hard, especially for some of those lefties, guys who might be coming off the bench like a Davin Whitaker. But, just go out there, swing the bat as hard as you can, and you never know.
Swing hard, says Wags. Jack Dover says the bracket does help if we do win the first game because we get to play Charlotte without their dude. Dare I say Riley Johnson hits with a cycle and Jake Hunter throws 6 scoreless? When does that happen, Jack? That would be great. I meant to ask this morning. I assume Riley is good for the tournament, but it's worth noting he did not play in the final 2 games of the USF series. So the Pirates need a healthy Riley Johnson too. So that is worth monitoring. I'll try to get some intel on that heading to tomorrow. JPN says, is there any chance Charlotte doesn't throw Gillespie on Tuesday? Did he throw in the series against Tulane? Do y'all know?
I'm not sure.
I would assume, it would be a risk to not throw him. Which it's not like Wichita State is horrific. So, and now I will say Wichita State's pitching is absolute trash. I think their ace has a 6 ERA, but I said that, and then they shoved against ECU. So it shows that at least if they're in the strike zone, they do have a closer. There's 98. There's just no telling where the ball is going. I don't know. I would be surprised if they did not throw Gillespie. I mean, I just think in this type of tournament, if you're saving an ace, it's going to come back to bite you.
Gillespie did pitch on Thursday. He only threw 4 innings, though.
Yeah. 4 innings, I would assume he comes back. I'd be shocked. It would be a major risk if Charlotte did not throw him. All right, some questions here. Lane Smith says, who are the 5 players we can trust the most next year? Again, we don't know at this point who's coming back, Lane. But, I mean, off the top of my head, assuming you get the guys back, it'd be the 4 all-conference guys that were announced today. And for me, going into next year, as I'm looking over this list, I mean, I think Sean Jenkins, if Brad Pruitt's back, I think you trust him to make a leap. I would also say, for me, Braxton Trammell as a guy as well. So, any thoughts there, gentlemen?
Yeah, Trammell, Burris, Norby, Jenkins. Well, it's Colby Wallace, I guess, would be back.
What about your breakout pick, Wags, Keenan Bowman? You gonna trust him next year?
Well, I got bad news. Look, if we want to start throwing shots at our picks, I go, what was your bold prediction for the year?
My bold prediction was ECU would not lose a home conference game. And what did they end up losing? 4 home conference series? They at least lost 3. FAU swept UTSA, and they lost to Tulane at home. So they lost 3 of their 4 conference series at home. So
got run ruled multiple times at home.
That was horrific. And what was Scott's bold prediction?
That was worse. I said we'd win 16 games against in-state opponents.
How many did they end up winning?
You included Coastal in that as well.
Oh, yeah, including Coastal. I don't even know if we won. We felt like we didn't win 16 games.
That was one of those things where when I listened back to the podcast and I went through and see what we all got right, I didn't even bother going through the schedule and checking that one because I knew there was no chance.
We started off at least 0-4 on the in-state thing. Gardner-Webb was our first win.
Gardner-Webb, 2 versus UNCW and 1 versus Coastal. I can't – maybe anybody else, or is that it?
Well, did you count Wilmington?
Yeah, 2 versus them. Gardner-Webb.
We won
2 versus Elon.
1-1
against Charlotte. Yeah, Elon, 2. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
We're almost there. So we're not quite to 16, but we're getting there.
You know what? I'm counting that game that got canceled at Campbell and NC State as wins. So
there you go.
We won by not having to watch them.
Lane Smith says, does Dixon 100% leave? I think so. I mean, his number was on the grass. I would be shocked if he's back. He's graduated. He's played 3 years. There's nothing really left for him to do unless he just doesn't get the number he wants at all and wants to come back and finish playing college baseball. I just would be shocked if he's back. Y'all are in agreement there, right?
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Dixon, Johnny Gardner says Dixon not on the all-conference list and Emma Jackson's departure. So, yeah, so Emma Jackson is not a member of the ECU baseball team, but she is a member of the ECU softball team, or was. She has hit the transfer portal. Not a shock. She played 2 years here after starting at Virginia Tech. Really good player. Hate to see her leave. I do think Shane Winkler will do what he did a couple of years ago where he went out and got Morgan Johnson from Clemson and Emma Jackson from VT, two players that have barely played but have been highly recruited and became stars here. So I think Winkler will be fine. The Dixon snub, this is the American. They, pardon my language, fuck this up every year with at least one ECU player. I'm sure there's other players, and this is Dixon. I want to say he got snubbed last year too. I can't remember. But look, I guess it's just a batting average contest because those two guys got picked because they had higher batting average. But Dixon's overall numbers are better. His power, his on base percentage outside of the UTSA dude who's on base is ridiculous, but he doesn't hit for any power. So I would take Dixon all day. Thoughts, gentlemen? Wags, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think Rasmussen was the first team, and I'm okay if you want to make a case for him, which I'm going to disagree with it, but yeah, Dixon should have been, at the very least, been on a team. And, but like you said, I'm not surprised. I mean, back when, we had that Norby and Francisco year, Thomas Francisco and Connor Norby, and Francisco was the guy who got snubbed. And, I'm not surprised anymore. He got snubbed from something. Maybe I'm misremembering, but
no, you're right. And then it was Jenkins Cower who got snubbed. They just hate ECU left-handed hitters.
Yeah,
there's one year where Bryant Packard didn't win Hitter of the Week the whole season, and then was the most outstanding player for the whole year. Like it just, I don't know.
This is the American, baby. Scott, anything to add?
Yeah, well, I'll say this: it's a little more salt in the wound that it is Rasmussen that.
For sure.
Was the first teamer. And on the Emma Jackson thing, and this could possibly apply to other ECU players, guys like AMAC and, potentially even Dixon Williams if he doesn't get his number. She's probably going to get a decent chunk of money in the transfer portal. I saw that she was listed as like the number 2 player in the portal right now. Not that there's a ton of money in softball, but some SEC school will throw a chunk of change at her. And, if you're Dixon Williams and you don't get your number in the draft, in the portals there, he would probably get a decent amount of money as well in the transfer portal if that's a route he chose. I think if you give 3 years at a school in a bat and ball sport, that's about all you can ask for. And she did that. And maybe Cliff needs to talk to Shane about how to use the transfer portal a little more effectively.
Shane Winkler and Cliff Godwin having beers, talking about the portal. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Maybe we can invite them both on this podcast and have a
maybe they should come next week.
Yeah. Just get them on and have a roundtable discussion. Lane Smith says, does ECU try and take players from this conference? How good is UTSA as Charlotte has won 9 games in a row? Lane, I don't know exactly what you're asking, but should ECU – hey, this is what – all right, so it's not a bad theory because Memphis basketball, Penny basically sees the best players in the league, and they immediately go and basically buy players from the rest of the American. They do it every year. They did it with Tulsa guy. What's his name? Who's
Haggerty.
The player? Yeah, Haggerty. Which, by the way, is he still in the portal? What's his deal?
Come to Greenville. We got apparently a lot of money to spend. So.
No, we're just looking for 18-year-olds from Australia. I don't know. It's. I mean, I don't see Cliff like hitting up UTSA shortstop. Although why not? He just won Player of the Year, or it was at their center fielder. Either way, they have damn good hitters. And be like, yo, come to Greenville. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Why not?
Yeah, and I would just say we did go after the one kid that was in the portal from USF that was like a middle infielder.
Yeah, they
and
did.
I think
Probably
he ended up at
Boser.
Auburn.
Yeah.
The problem with going after the elite players in this league is that a lot of the times they're not in the portal just because they want to go somewhere else. They want to make a lot of money. And while we do have probably the most NIL money in our conference for baseball, we don't have the kind of money that, an Auburn or a Arkansas or somebody like that is going to be able to offer. And if you've proven that you can play in the American and a lot of the leagues that are kind of in our realm, Sun Belt, those types of leagues, if you go in the portal, an SEC school is going to look at a guy like that as someone who's valuable, ACC as well. So it's hard to recruit from guys that are in our league. I think if you are talking about guys like that, it's not going to be the high-end guys as much as it's a guy like Rasmussen, right? That maybe you see the talent as a freshman, but they're behind somebody and can't get on the field. And you can maybe pluck someone like that away. But I think it would be hard to pull in anybody that's on either one of these all-conference teams.
For sure. Fair points. All right. Brandon Carr weighs in. He says, thanks for the show, guys. I have loved it, even though it hasn't been the best year. Scott, wear the Juicy J's shirt more. It's good beer. Wags, I asked you a month ago if our heels, in all caps, would win it all. Do you care to make that a bold prediction as well?
I have no idea who's going to win it all, but I would give you that. I do like where UNC is right now.
I knew it. We all know it. It's damn Toro. Which, by the way, yeah, somebody else called you out in the VIP chat today again. I don't know if you saw it for being a UNC fan.
I stopped reading at some point. I got to go catch up.
Brandon Carr also adds, and I forgot, Wags, you picked the Capitals in 6. He had to do the Canes win the next series. So the Canes get the Florida Panthers. You will be there tomorrow. So best of luck there. And that may guarantee an ECU win. So your thoughts on the Canes, though?
Yeah, the Canes have proven me wrong at every step of the season. It was supposed to be kind of a step back, retool year, and they're really good. And they're so much worse on paper than they have been in previous years, but this is probably the best bought-in team to the system that they've ever put together since Rod has been there. But Panthers will be tough. And, obviously 2 years ago was what it was. We got swept, but that was one of those games where one bounce goes differently in all 4 of those games, and the Canes could have swept. And you had no Andrei Svechnikov, who's probably playing the best hockey of his career right now in these playoffs. So I think the Canes can get it done. I think it's going to be a long series, and I think it's going to go 7 games. But if you're picking up what I'm putting down here, I'm going to predict officially the Panthers in 6. If you understand what I'm doing right there.
Doesn't work like that, but nice try.
Canes in 7.
Calling a shot. By the way, our baseball teams are on a combined, not our ECU baseball team, let me clarify. Our Major League Baseball teams heading into tonight, I assume this is all right. I'm looking at it now. Yep, the Nationals have won 3 in a row.
Swept the O's. They got Brandon Hyde fired and Kyle Gibson DFA'd. The Nats are a wagon.
The Nats are a wagon. Man, Wags just throwing out some crazy shit tonight. The Cincinnati Reds won again tonight, correct, Scott?
I hadn't checked for tonight. I had a hard time getting my child to sleep.
Okay.
But they did sweep the Ohio Cup. So
7-1 victory over the Pirates tonight. So they have won 5 in a row. And the Mariners swept the Padres on the road, and they are beating the White Sox 5-0 in the top of the ninth.
It makes sense because I deleted DraftKings off my phone. So now that the Bucks on the Pond parlay would have hit like 5 nights in a row.
Yeah. So, hey, maybe this is good mojo heading into the conference tournament in a row. Anyways, all our Major League Baseball teams, the Reds, the Mariners, and the Nats are hot. So the Pirates can get hot too. If those 3 teams can get hot, baby, the ECU Pirates can do it, not the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right. Chandler Harrell says, how many players are cooked on this team and are asked to not return? A fair amount.
Yeah.
I think that process has already started as we've seen some guys leave the roster. All right, gentlemen, we are nearing the end of an hour, and it is prediction time. Our bold predictions for last week, I'll be honest, I don't even remember what I predicted. Oh, yeah, I predicted Braden Burst would throw. That did not happen. Do y'all remember y'all's bold predictions?
I think I had Alex Peltier home run.
What
Did
did
not
I
happen.
have?
You would have remembered if you had it.
Oh, I had a Gabe Beschloss win. He had one appearance. He did not win.
Gabe Beschloss, he was on the mound when South Florida walked it off. Does that count?
I'm giving myself half credit.
Someone won.
All right, the predictions for the week ahead. Who wants to go first? We'll start with the actual tournament. And as well, we'll discuss, too, if you guys want to throw in your who you think will win each side and who will win the championship. So who wants to go first?
I got you.
All right, go ahead.
East Carolina will win the American Conference Tournament.
All right, I'm out.
That's enough for me.
They're watching a movie tonight. I'm just going to assume it's Wyatt Earp. Just something to get them fired up. They're going to play with pride. They're going to play with passion. They're going to get knocked down. They're going to get up, hit them dead in the jaw. Won't some get some.
You should play Ruff McNeil's speech.
They're just going to play that on a loop all the way. You know, when they're sitting at the stadium tomorrow night for hours waiting for their game to start, they're just going to play Ruff and McNeil on a loop.
For 12 hours because it'll be a 9 o'clock start.
And hold on, I got to remember who's on the other side. Give me FAU coming out of the other side of the bracket.
Revenge championship game. Pirates got owned in Greenville.
Hard to beat a team 4 times in a season or whatever.
That's what they say. What do you got, Wax?
Yeah, well, first I want to address Scott's bold prediction, and I know you said they're watching a movie tonight, but the movie doesn't carry over in tomorrow. That's the only way they're winning this tournament is if they are the movie. So, I'm gonna go 1-2. I do think you're gonna win tomorrow. You're gonna win the first game, and that's where I thought Scott was going when he said they're going to win. But I think you win tomorrow. You have a fresh Norby. And I think it's going to be similar to the Thursday game against South Florida. So I think you win tomorrow. But after that, it's just I struggle to see this team piecing together the pitching after that, especially I hate to take another shot at the coaching staff. No, I don't care. But, I don't trust when you get into a tight game situation that you're not going to overmanage and have too short of a leash on some pitchers that might come back and bite you in the second game if you do lose. So I think you go 1-2, and I just don't trust the pitching or definitely the hitting. And I don't know. My gut has been telling me I think UTSA comes out of the other side of the bracket, but I've had a gut feeling all week that Charlotte could go on a run, and I'm gonna say Charlotte's on the bubble right now. The RPI is within range. They're a little bit out, but they were in my next 4 out, I believe, in my field. If not, they were right there. And I'm going to say that Charlotte goes on and says, screw the bubble, and they win the tournament. And we get 2 bids from the American in the year that ECU is not in it.
Man, Charlotte making it would rub some salt in the wound of the Pirates as well. And unfortunately, I have ECU beating South Florida, but losing the Thursday winners bracket game to Charlotte. I think Charlotte, they've won 9 in a row. They could be coming in on a 10-game winning streak if they win the opener. And then I think ECU, if they lose Thursday, will lose Friday to be eliminated. Now, I do think if ECU wins the first 2, I think obviously if they win the first 2, they make it to the championship game. And I think if they get there, they will win it, unlike 2017 when they lost it. Because I have Rice beating UTSA in one of the opening games. Davian Hickson, I think, is going to throw a gem. The Roadrunners really don't have a ton to play for. They just swept Rice. It's hard to beat a team 4 times. That's what they say. I'm going to go right, and Rice strategically did not throw Hickson, so I'm going to go Rice, hands him an L there. And then I'm torn on this is Tulane's tournament. I mean, this is what Tulane does. They win this tournament, but they have to face Trey Beard in that first game. And so I also have FAU playing Charlotte in the championship game. And I think FAU is going to win and get the automatic bid. I think they're going to bring Beard back on Sunday. I guess Charlotte could do that with the Gillespie as well, but I will take the Owls to win. Not the Rice Owls, the FAU Owls.
The Temple Owls will win
the Temple Owls. The Kennesaw State Owls will enter the American and win the tournament. We have some other predictions here before we get to our bowl predictions. Lane Smith says bowl prediction: Dixon Williams 3 home runs. ECU goes blank and 0. I guess he means 4-0. 4-0.
How many we need?
Yep. ECU pitchers have a sub-3 ERA. Lane is all in on the Pirates. He is with the Scott. He's with the Scott optimistic train. JPN says ECU wins Tuesday, loses Thursday, Friday. FAU and Charlotte in the championship. Charlotte wins, so he's got the same championship but different champion. And Brian Wallace says, I just hope they don't get eliminated before I get to Clearwater Thursday. Well, Brian, why are you going to Clearwater first off? And then best of luck is all I can say. I hope you get to see a winning game. I still have never been to this tournament, and I was thinking about going this year, but I really don't want to go. So I'm not going.
I had fun when I was there.
Yeah. When did you go again?
Was it my senior year?
I think it was.
It was either my junior year or my senior year. One of those two. I want to say it was my senior year, actually. Yeah, it was my senior year because that was the same year I went to the Nashville Super Regional against Vandy. So yeah, I was there that year. It was fun. Almost got kicked out, but
that tends to happen to ECU fans for some reason because we're the only fans there. I will say, by the way, before we get our bowl predictions, we are having a watch along with our Hoist the Colors 94.3 The Game team tomorrow, which, by the way, you guys are invited if you want to drive in. I'm assuming with the 9 o'clock first pitch, it's going to be kind of tough, but
I'm going to pick the Lenovo Center.
Yep, that's fair as well. So you may have that game up as well in the studio, but whenever the game is on, we'll have it on. So tune in. It'll be on the 94.3 social pages. And we'll have that going, and we'll give away prizes, react to the game, all that good stuff. All right, bold prediction time. Who wants to kick it off?
I'm ready.
All right, Wags.
So I had us going 1-2, and I think the talk of this week is going to be Alex Boucher. But we're not going to see him at shortstop, I don't think, at least not starting a game. But I do think we're going to see him either at DH or maybe in left field, especially since they're bringing Braden Burrs in to second base. That opens up a spot in the outfield. So I could see them trying Boucher in left. So I think he's going to be out there is the point I'm getting at. And I think he would hit a home run, which I think considers as bold considering there's no guarantee on more than 2 games and he might not be in a lineup. So
I mean, that passes as a bold prediction. I would definitely give you that. Scott?
I'll go Ethan Norby, 7+ shutout innings tomorrow night.
That would be great. That would be a phenomenal start to the weekend. I will go Jake Hunter, 2 scoreless appearances on the week and a win. So
that's really bold considering you just said they were going 1-2.
Exactly. So he's gonna get a win. And he is going to, although that doesn't really line up my prediction because I don't know if he'll pitch tomorrow.
Norby and whoever, Braun could go 7 each, right?
Yeah.
Hunter could come in a 0-0 game.
They're definitely going to Ethan Young in that spot, though.
Okay, well, I'm trying to, in extra innings.
All right, let me rework it. Jake Hunter will have 2 scoreless appearances and a save. Is that better? That seems more realistic, and it's still bold. Like he doesn't give up a run.
It's gonna be funny when your first prediction hits and the other one doesn't. We don't count it.
All right, there's our bold predictions. JPN says Jake Hunter likely starts Thursday, so that wouldn't be good. But hey, he could get a save on Saturday when the Pirates advance to the championship. All right, gentlemen, we are out of time. We have gone over an hour. This has been a fun show. I would say it's been a fun year, but
Nope.
I mean, it hasn't. Let's just be
It's
real.
been a fun show for the year.
I mean, we've only threatened to cancel the show every Monday morning. We're just like, do we really want to do this today? And damn it, we found a way. And we'll do at least one more. Will it be a regional preview next Monday night? Will it be a season recap? We'll find out. If Scott's prediction comes through, I'm not going to lie, it would be epic to see the energy back and infused in the Pirate Nation. Even if we're a 3 seed about to be sent to like Arkansas or some shit.
I believe the last time that we were a 3 seed in the tournament, we were 90 feet from Omaha.
That is very true. That is very true. So you never know. You never know, folks. Any closing thoughts here? We'll go around the horn. Wag, start with you.
Yeah, next week will be probably filled with some more rants. Assuming we don't win in Clearwater and Scott's wrong, it'll be a fun show, kind of dissecting what went wrong and what you do to fix it. But more importantly, I will also be tuned in at that time for Game 4 between the Canes and Panthers, so it'll be a big game. So if you want to watch me kind of on edge next week, come on back to the show.
If you want to see Wag saving more ludicrous things than he said on today's show, you can find that next Monday night. Scott?
Canes in 4. That's all I got for you.
Hell yeah.
Canes in 5.
Hell yeah.
They lose tomorrow because Wags is there, and then they win.
Yes.
ECU wins by 10 tomorrow. Canes lose by 10.
I'd be so pissed.
Jesus.
JPN says, I would be so disappointed if you cancel the show. JPN, we're not canceling the show as long as you give us $50 through a super chat in the next 5 minutes. So
Wags has to pay for parking tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's about what it was.
$65 for parking or whatever it is. All right, we got to get out of here, boys. It's been fun. For Scott Lowerbatcher, for Jonathan Wagner, I am Stephen Igo. We're out.